Welcome back to the Call on Our Shot podcast. I'm Austin. I'm joined by Logan, and we're back every single Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. We got a lot of action-packed. We got an action-packed episode. We're going to talk about the NFL, talk about Week 15, talk about our playoff predictions. We got tons and our takeaways from the previous weekend. If you happen to be new to the channel, consider clicking that subscribe button and go download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Now, Logan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Another exciting weekend of football. Maybe a little bit more clarity, but just enjoying it as usual. How are you doing, buddy?
It's been a good week. Call on Our Shot channel continues to grow day by day, so we appreciate everyone that's clicking that subscribe button and click that like button too for us. But yeah, it's been a wild week for Call on Our Shot for in the NFL. We kind of get to, we're still kind of separating these teams, kind of seeing, who's really got a chance of making the Super Bowl, who's really, kind of a pretender, and it's been exciting. But there's a lot of teams out there that I think. We finally kind of getting some more clarity about, who's good, who's not. And really, you can just kind of tell there's a lot of teams that you really just don't know what to expect from them on a week-to-week basis.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit, about fantasy though. This is the start of many fantasy playoffs. And yeah, I'm sitting my butt on the couch. I want to know how you feel real quick going into the fantasy playoffs. Are you excited for them?
Yeah, this is a tough conversation for some people out there that are out of their fantasy football playoffs. But for me personally, I'm in one league, out of the other. I'm excited to be in it. I needed all Matthew Stafford's touchdowns last night. Or technically, this goes up on Wednesday, but we record Tuesday night. But we needed all of Matthew Stafford's points. I had the highest scoring team, so I think I deserve to be there. But I'm happy to be there.
Absolutely.
I don't necessarily know my team's a little bit on the wide receivers are a little bit skewed. We have DeAndre Hopkins. We got Mike Evans with the tough matchup. We'll talk about a little bit later. Mike
Yeah.
Williams too. It's tough, but my other league's the more one that I'm more angry about because that team I thought was pretty good. That was with a bunch of other Twitter content creators, and it stinks that league. I think I finished 5-9. Now icing on top, well, cherry on top. I did eliminate someone that had a chance to win and get in, and I told them not so fast this past weekend.
No, you'll have to see that. I'm pitching you an idea real quick at the beginning of our show. I'm pitching you an idea for calling our shot next year. How about we have maybe a survivor league, which the premise of a survivor league is really cool in fantasy. Maybe you're eliminated first week and just get to sit it out. But I think that would be really cool. We get some people in the calling our shot community, put together a survivor league because you need a really big amount of teams to make it fun. So that's a potential idea. I don't know about your thoughts on that.
I think it's a really good idea. That's something we pondered at the beginning of the season. Like I know I talked to
Mhm.
you, I talked to Sam and whatnot. We were considering that or a fantasy football league, and fantasy football will be way too difficult to mandate
Yeah.
across the whole. I mean, it's hard to choose. Hey, sorry, we're only picking 8 people, but with the Survivor League, you can pick as many people as they want to join. I think it would be really
Mhm.
cool. So maybe we'll fire that up for NFL 2022. My last note before we get into our NFL Week 14 takeaways: our live stream will be tonight, Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern
Ooh.
time. I hope to see you guys out there. We'll be answering every single question that you guys have about the NBA slate. Wednesday's the biggest slate in the NBA. We'll be live for about 30 minutes from about 6 to 6:30, answering every single question. Of course, it's powered by Dimers. Now, without further ado, Logan, let's get into our Week 14 takeaways, and I'll let you take this one away.
Yeah, so look, we started this show off kind of talking about what's becoming more clear to me, something that's becoming inevitable. The inevitable Thanos meme, everything. Bucks and Packers are meeting on a collision course in the NFC Championship. I just see it. I don't care really who gets home field advantage in this one. It's just going to be Brady versus Rodgers. The two, I believe, leading MVP candidates. But look, the Bucks took care of business against the Bills. Congrats. I mean, that was a win that I really thought the Bills needed a lot more than the Bucks, and the Bucks just clutched it up at the end. I mean, don't bet against Brady, right? Covered the spread in a wild fashion, but also the Packers taking care of business against the Bears. Again, divisional opponent. Those games are closer sometimes. Aaron Rodgers owns the Bears. So again, to me, it's becoming more clear these two teams are just the top of the NFC. Maybe you agree with that, maybe you disagree, but I just think it is Bucks and Packers 1-2 flip flop. I don't care which order.
I see where you're coming from. The one thing that a little bit concerns me for the Buccaneers is that Antonio Brown, we don't know what's going to go on with him. They've obviously have Mike Evans, and they have Chris Godwin. Those are two elite wide receivers, and obviously they got Gronkowski. But in order to win an NFL or like Super Bowl, I feel like you need that third, wide receiver that really can set you apart from the rest of them. And they need Antonio Brown to be back. Now he is suspended for a couple more games. He's been injured since I think week 5 or 6, but he's one of those guys that I think they need back. Now the Packers, on the other hand, they've been looking very good so far. Yes, Aaron Rodgers does own the Chicago Bears, and they made the mistake doing the discount double check over him early in
Oof.
the first quarter. You learned your lesson, Robert Quinn, but you just don't do that. But I think there's another team out there that really proved some people wrong on Monday Night Football, and that was the Rams. And I love the Rams. I love Stafford. He's coming from Georgia. I've always been rooting for him, and he's finally getting that chance. And people are kind of counting him out. And what did they do? They went into Arizona and they beat that Rams team. And I don't necessarily know. The offense is a little bit questionable still. I mean, I got to talk about Cooper Kupp for a second. Give him his praise. I don't know if there's a guy that I enjoy watching more in the NFL than Cooper Kupp. I mean, this guy, his routes are fun. Everything he does after the catch, he's hurdling people, breaking tackles.
Yep.
The kid's insane. He's so talented, and I think he's probably one of my favorite guys to watch. But I think the biggest thing for the Rams is that defense stepped up and played super well. Now, sure, they gave up 23 points, 3 of those being on that field goal at the end, but really they shouldn't. They were missing Jalen Ramsey, arguably the best player on that defensive side, at least their best corner. And Darius Williams, I think that's his name, he stepped up. The whole defense stepped up, had 2 crucial picks in the red zone. They really were doing a bend up but don't break. And so that's what I think the biggest thing. I think the Rams, they still got a chance. Now, I would like them, if they are going to get there, they probably need to get that division away from the Cardinals, and maybe they can towards the end of the year with 4 more games left. But what do you think about the Rams? Do you think they got a chance to beat either the Bucs or the Packers? I mean, likely they'll have to go into those respective stadiums to beat them.
Yeah, look, what doesn't motivate me about the Rams, and it could just be, with injuries and whatnot. I don't love that they don't have a running attack, right? You've seen it kind of catch up to the Buffalo Bills, right? You can only ride Josh Allen so much. I believe you can only ride Matt Stafford and that passing offense so much. Eventually, and I say eventually, we've been saying this about Cooper Kupp all year. Eventually, defenses will figure him out. Well, you know what? They haven't really figured him out. Props to him. He's absolutely been amazing. But in the playoffs, we know this to be true. The game is a little bit different, right? Going to Lambeau Field, I question the Rams' ability. We've already seen them play the Packers already, but I question their ability come playoff time to win that physical type of grinded out game. That's just not who they're built on. That's not the type of team they're built. The Bucs, the Bucs will just flat out outscore them. And so, you know what? I'm not 100% sold on the Rams, but just really one of my takeaways from that game, yes, I was impressed by the Rams, but I was also looking at the Cardinals again, and I was saying, see, I knew something was off about them a little bit, right? I just said I'm never really sold on that Cliff Kingsbury coach team, and I thought we kind of saw that, right? When you need it, the Cardinals aren't going to be there again. It's so weird how bad they are at home, though. Have you seen anything
all 3
like
of
that?
their losses coming at home is just a baffling
insane.
statistic. It's a weird one. And I can understand your, qualms or questions about the Rams. I mean, I think I have a lot of questions for them too, especially Stafford. He doesn't have a lot of playoff experience either. So, will he be one of those guys that, comes up and just lights it up in the playoffs, or, will they struggle? And we really don't know what to expect. Sean McVay's obviously made the Super Bowl with Jared Goff, but still, I think that team was a much different one than this Rams constructed team. So I get that. I think they'll get the running game going one of these weeks. I mean, Sony Michel wasn't terrible last night, and he was pretty good the week before, but that was against the Jaguars. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting kind of question to kind of ponder. You don't really know what's going to go down. But I think you think about those 3 teams, and I think they're leaps and bounds. You could put the Cardinals up there, but like you said, Kingsbury and that Kyler Murray, and the team just seems to fold when it matters the most. And I do have to say, props to James Conner, man. That guy is. If you had him in fantasy football, you probably are in the playoffs. But I'm just excited for him as a guy that it's hard. You can't root against James Conner, one of the most likable guys in the NFL. And the one-handed catches he's making every single week, he's ridiculous. I think he's 1 or 2 touchdowns behind Jonathan Taylor, who's been absolutely ridiculous himself. Yeah. Just a great story. I'm curious where James Conner goes this offseason, because he only signed a 1-year deal, very little amount of money. So I'm just excited for him as a whole.
Yeah, on a prove it deal. I love to see NFL players on the prove it deal, and then they do prove it. Maybe he gets the bag in the offseason. I really was impressed with his performance last night.
Yeah, he's been awesome. But let's move on. Before we get into week 15, we're going to answer a couple of your guys' social questions. And the first one we're going to answer is coming from our friend Scott. He's always sending us questions. And he was asking about some fantasy football playoff strategies. Now, I know you are not in the playoffs in our fantasy football league, but that doesn't mean you can't offer your advice because your team is normally very good. It's not your fault you got stuck with, well, not stuck with. You chose Christian McCaffrey, your favorite player, and Ezekiel Elliott was your second guy that you chose. And then
Yeah,
your
look,
third wide receiver the only wide receiver you spent money on was Brandon Ayuk. So
yeah, look. That's so first we have to
you get
preface.
a vent session. This is your vent session just
Yeah,
for a minute.
yeah, for a hot minute, I'm just going to preface this. Obviously, we're not in the traditional snake draft type league. We're in an auction budget draft. So I pretty much did get to pick my team, with the exception of Christian McCaffrey. I absolutely love Christian McCaffrey. If you've been following this podcast, you know I die for that man. I love him, but he can't stay healthy. So boom, there's $80 down the drain. So I'm already at a huge disadvantage. And yes, I had to craft my team with Ezekiel Elliott, he's been up and down, mostly down on the year. And yeah, when you don't have a lot of budget for wide receivers and you bank on Brandon Ayuk being good, no, that wasn't a thing. So it's been a tough year. But you know what? My team is usually a playoff team. I think in the past 4 or 5 years, I've made the playoffs every single year pretty much. So I have a little bit of clout to offer on this topic, but I definitely think, look, when you're in the playoffs, I tend to be of the strategy, don't overthink things, right? Like if you're just like, who took me here? Now I think you and I are going to disagree on this, but I can't sleep at night if I have a player that's been performing for me all year and I'm just like, I don't like the matchup, and then I go ahead and bench them. I don't subscribe to that theory. I am more of a risk averse type player. But you know what? I know how you roll. I know your style. You're no risk and no
Yeah,
biscuit.
I'm straight take risks. Now,
Yeah,
maybe we should combine strategies and be a little bit more, conservative or maybe, a moderate risk kind of player. But my whole strategy is, you get to the playoffs and you want to win it all. And I don't think you can win it all just being conservative and just,
yeah,
saying, well, this guy got me here, but this guy's got a better matchup, but I'll just play the guy that got me here. I just don't think it works out. Sure, if your team's loaded, and my teams have been loaded in the past where I didn't even have to make any decisions. It was the year I believe Odell Beckham Jr. was a rookie. I also had Calvin Johnson. I had a loaded like Julio Jones. My team was loaded. I didn't have to. I just could set whoever I wanted, and I was going to win that week unless it was an abnormality. But I think you got to take some risks, but they got to be calculated. You can't just go out there and be like, oh, I'm going to start Braxton Berrios this week. He's got a good matchup. You just don't do things like that. But I have beaten you in the past with the Keelan Cole, and he had a great matchup.
oh,
And you would think, oh yeah, I know it gives you PTSD here, and oh, Keelan Cole, you got to be kidding me. But I think you have to take calculated risks. Now, in
yeah.
the past, I've lost doing this. I believe I had Peyton Manning in one of his great years. I think I benched him for Cam Newton in the finals, and I think if I would have played Peyton Manning, go to one, and that was one of Peyton or Cam Newton's early years. He was a running guy. I mean, he still is, but that was a bold take at that time, and it cost me. But in the past, I've won a lot of fantasy leagues, just kind of taking risks, but making sure they're calculated. If you're on the fence between like when you got a safer play or a more risky one, I normally go the more risky one, especially if your team, you're going up against a guy that probably should beat you on paper. You got to take some risks, and or that's starting, guys like Deshaun Jackson. I mean, bad comparison, but guys like that could really, bust off and just have a great game and really carry you to a championship. You got to do it, in my opinion.
I really wish you didn't pour salt in the wound with Keelan Cole, because every single year you just love to bring up that Keelan Cole name. Yes, Austin beat me in the fantasy championship with Keelan Cole. Him and I had the much better team on paper, the team that went very deep in that league. And Austin just had what Austin does, meme teams, right? He just just pick this. Yeah, just throw this together. He threw in Keelan Cole, and I was like, oh, this is offensive that you're playing Keelan Cole against me. Well, Keelan Cole had a lot better game than most of my wide receivers, and yeah, that's all she wrote. So sometimes in fantasy, if you just want to just go hard or go home, I understand that strategy. But that's just the difference between you and I: risk averse versus just max risk. That's what you
And
are.
it's ironic because in real life I'm a very risk averse person, not someone
Yeah.
that's taking a ton of risks doing like crazy things out in the real world, but fantasy football, maybe that's where I get my outlet. I just say, you know what, I'm starting like in that game when I beat you, I think I started Jimmy Garoppolo and Marquise
Yes, you.
Goodwin. It was just the tandem duo when I
Yeah.
think it was Jimmy Garoppolo's first year with the 49ers. But I think in summary, I think taking some conservative plays, but also taking some risks, kind of picking and choosing your spots. Like obviously
Yeah.
you don't want to bench your studs. I never really want to do that. But if there's guys on the fence, maybe you've been starting him, but you aren't that confident. Go with the high risk, high reward guy. You never know where it could take you.
Yeah, no, it's hard to argue against that. I mean, it's the fantasy playoffs. As long as you're not playing for tens of thousands of dollars, have a little bit of fun with it, right?
Exactly. So we're going to move on. We're going to talk about some teams that we think might have a chance of making the playoffs, playoff like future predictions and things of that nature. And I'm going to skip kind of over the AFC because in my opinion, the AFC's got a lot of teams up near the top. The 3 wild cards right now, I believe, are the Chargers. They're let me get them officially. They are going to be the Chargers, the Colts, and the Buffalo Bills, all sitting at Chargers 8-5, and then 6 and 7 seed are both 7-6. Personally, do you see a team jumping them like the Browns, the Bengals, the Broncos, Steelers? Do you see any of those teams kind of jumping them? Personally, I don't. The Bills are 7-6, which is crazy to think about, but I still think
Yeah.
they're a playoff team. It's crazy to think that they could potentially miss the playoffs, but
The Bills are still a playoff team. Look, they're just simply too talented. I mean, they'll figure it out enough to get there. The Bengals are allergic to success. We saw that exactly happen. Look, man, I don't need to bring you down.
Talk about this. We don't.
Well, I don't need to talk about them being your last leg. Look, I'm sorry. I am so sorry that you had to watch them fold when it's some teams you just know aren't clutch. Bengals not clutch. Bengals not making the playoffs. Not your time yet, Bengals. Maybe they'll right the ship down the road, but not Bengals. No. Who else you mentioned? You mentioned Browns. Yeah, barf in a bag. Absolutely not. Baker Mayfield. No, I'm not sold on Baker Mayfield one bit. The game gets out of hand. Baker Mayfield don't know what to do. So yeah, Colts, Bills, Chargers. I mean, these are the
Broncos were the last one. But don't the Broncos play the Bengals this weekend?
Yeah, exactly. The Broncos do play the Bengals. We'll talk about it a little bit, but yeah, you know what? Teddy Bridgewater.
And that's a playoff game. That's basically a playoff. If you lose that game, you're not making it, in my opinion.
It kind of is. I mean, if you look at the Broncos, okay, you know what? If you're trying to ask me out of the teams I just kind of ragged on, who's got the best chance to make it, I guess I would say the Broncos, and just I like the way that they're built. I love Javonte Williams. I mean, what he's doing is really impressive. I mean, I love the two-headed monster of Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. Their identity is just flat out, we're going to line up and run the ball. So, you know what? I like the way they're built. They're kind of built more as a playoff team, right? The Broncos would make a game ugly, especially, if I don't think they get home field, but if they ever got a home game in Mile High, that's a tough place to play.
Yeah, when I think about these two teams, the Broncos and Browns are very similar to each other. Now, they have an identity. They know what they want to do. They want to play good defense. I'd say the Broncos have a much better defense than the Browns, and they want to run the football. And when those two teams get down in games, there's no chance they're coming back. It just won't happen. And you saw the Browns try to choke away their game against the Lamar Jackson-less Ravens on Sunday, and they still ended up winning. Props to them. They really did not want to win that game apparently, but both those two teams just can't win when they get down, and that's okay. But you got a Bengals team that I think is still searching for an identity. Some weeks they got Joe Mixon going, running the ball, getting him touchdowns left and right. Then other weeks they just got throwing the ball all around, whether it's to T. Higgins or Jamar Chase. They just don't have much of an identity, and I think that will hurt them in the long run. So I think the Bengals have a chance to win this weekend. We'll talk about this game in a little bit, but arguably I think those top 7 teams are going to be locked in. I think the Colts are good enough to make the playoffs. I don't see anyone passing the Bills. And then you got the Chargers at 8 wins, which I don't see them dropping that far. But I think where we have some questions are going to come down to the NFC, where you got, the first 5 seeds are all locked in. Packers, Buccaneers, Cardinals, Cowboys, and Rams. All 5 of those teams are making it. But the last 2 spots, you think the 49ers are going to make it. They're a whole game above other teams. But the last spot's an interesting one. It's really going to, I think, in my opinion, coming down to 3 teams. It's going to be the Washington football team, the Minnesota Vikings, or the Philadelphia Eagles. Do you have a preference on who you think will come out of those? And I'll give you the schedule if you really want.
Yeah, please pull up the Eagles schedule as I'm going on a little bit of a Philly rant. But look, I mean, everyone, probably knows by now, I do live in Philly. I've got a pulse on the city of Philadelphia. And you know what? Everybody here is cautiously optimistic that the Birds will make the playoffs. The way that they're constructed, I really like the Eagles defense. I think it doesn't get enough credit, right? I mean, it's a pretty solid defense. They've obviously gotten lit up by pretty decent offenses, but You know what? Offensively, yeah, there's a few question marks there, right? And that's what it's going to come down to. Jalen Hurts and his legs can only carry you so far. But you know what? There's a little bit of magic there. I would take them over Washington, and I would take them over Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota. Can we just talk about them? I mean, Kirk Cousins, I don't trust. They're like, is there a quarterback that you least trust in prime time than Kirk Cousins? I question that, right?
I have a soapbox to offer on this in a little bit, so I'll say my words.
Exactly. Well, if you've got the Eagles schedule pulled up, do you have it?
I had it earlier, and it's ironic because these teams play the exact same teams their last four, the Eagles and the Washington football team. They play each other
Oh,
twice. They still have yet to play each other. So they get each other
okay.
in this week, and then in 2 weeks, they got the Giants, and then they got the Cowboys flip-flopped. So one team plays the Giants in between them, one plays the Cowboys, and then vice versa.
Okay. So it's you're pretty much, it's just all NFC East pretty much.
Yep, they got a whole NFC East the rest of the year.
Yeah. So okay, so look at this. I mean, look, the way Washington kind of lost to Dallas, their comeback was inspiring. But look, the Heineke magic, it's run out. I'm just gonna put a nail in the Heineke coffin. And you know, we saw him get hurt in that game. I don't know what his injury status is, but if it's the Kyle Allen show, look, Panther fan here. I've seen Heineke and I've seen Kyle Allen. Both these Panthers quarterbacks, they are not going to get the Washington football team anywhere. Terry McLaurin got a concussion. They are unfortunately trending down. They were a good story. I love Riverboat Ron, but the Eagles will take care of business. At the very least, they'll split that. They'll take care of business against the Giants as well. And to be honest, I don't mind how the Eagles shape up against the Cowboys. I kind of think, you know, they have the defense good enough to maybe steal a game against Dallas.
Yeah, in my opinion, if I had to pick one out of these three teams, I'd pick the Eagles for a lot of the reasons that you already said. You know, their defense get very underrated, one of the best defenses in terms of defending the opposing wide receiver position. So very good in that regard. And yeah, I think they're better than that Washington football team. And we look at them, they'll play them this week. And then let me see, they are playing them this week. Okay, so this week's at home, and then in week 17 they're on the road. I just think they're a much better team in terms of, you know, they got the ground game going. I just think they'll be able to win that. Now you think they'll play the Giants in a couple weeks, and that was the team they lost to, which was an inexplicable loss a couple weeks ago. Like, and looking back on it, I'm sure they really regret losing that game. They won't lose to them twice in one season. Just won't happen. And yeah, you're right. They could beat the Cowboys. Now, my main reason, really, I think it comes down to those two teams because the Vikings, their strength of schedule is tough. They got the Bears this weekend, which on paper might look bad, but we'll talk about it in a little bit. Then they got the Rams and the Packers back to back. You don't love them against either of those two teams, especially after they beat the Packers earlier this year. Don't see Rodgers losing to them twice, especially in Lambeau Field on January 2nd. And then the final game of the season is against the Bears once again. So don't love the Vikings output. That you just can never count on Kirk Cousins. I mean, you think, you know, oh, this team's got all the pieces together, and then they almost choked to the Steelers on Thursday Night Football. That team is just abysmal to watch. I have only friends with one Vikings fan in my life, and they just they really love their lives, if you can imagine. I think the Vikings have now been in 10 straight one-score games. I think the NFL record is 12, so we'll see if they can break that by the end of the year. Man, it's tough to trust the Vikings.
No, I hear you. That's, again, if you're just looking at it and you're just like, who's got the clutch gene? You know what, Jalen Hurts, you know, he's young, but could he be ready? Like, could this be his moment? Absolutely. I think fly Eagles fly. I mean, yeah, give me the birds in that.
Yeah, I'm in. Now, the final question that we'll talk about, another one, was about some award predictions for the NFL. Now, in my opinion, I think Tom Brady's a lock lock. Don't like using that word for MVP. I don't see a lot of people passing him, in my opinion. I think they have a very easy strength of schedule the rest of the way out. They should be able to. I mean, they got the Saints this weekend. They're at home, though. I really think he should be able to clearly go through it. I think he's minus 175, though, so not a lot of value on him. Then we talk about comeback player of the year. That's going to be Dak Prescott. You won't have to worry about that. Defensive rookie of the year will be Micah Parsons. Offensive rookie of the year, I would imagine, will be Mac Jones. I think Jamar Chase might be worth a little bit of dart throw because I think if, you know, Mac Jones loses a couple games here, I think, and Jamar Chase has a couple good games, you never know. But Jamar Chase will have a tough matchup this week against the Broncos, so don't love his odds on that. But I think the biggest one really is defensive player of the year. Personally, I'm going to ride with Myles Garrett. I think you look at the past couple of years, he's plus 300, I believe, on DraftKings. When I think about the past couple of years, Myles Garrett has gotten robbed. So has TJ Watt, but Myles Garrett has been gotten robbed several times. Defensive player of the year. Aaron Donald apparently has paid off the voters, and I can't blame him. Aaron Donald's one of them. I mean, we saw him on Monday Night Football. The guy's a tank, just pushing people left and right that way over 300 pounds. He's a man on a mission, and I love Aaron Donald, but I think this is Myles Garrett's time to shine, and I think he's got a chance. And I think he's the odds-on favorite right now to win Defensive Player of the Year, and I think he gets it
Yep.
done.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at the odds as you were just talking. So Myles Garrett plus 250 on FanDuel, Micah Parsons plus 350. Look, is there some cowboy bias in the media?
Yes,
Absolutely.
I saw those odds. Yeah, and I was like,
Yeah,
okay.
Micah Parsons, he absolute stud. I mean, he's minus 5,000 to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Okay, literal. That's an actual lock. But you know what? Like, it's just kind of crazy because this is one of those whole like hype awards. And Aaron Donald, he's probably not going to win it at plus 800. But are you telling me I'd be insane to bet Micah Parsons plus 350 just to ride in the hype train? I mean, the way he's inspired that Cowboys defense has actually been really cool. The biggest question mark I always had about Dallas was, oh yeah, they got the talent on offense, but that defense, you just never know. Well, Micah Parsons is kind of anchoring that defense. They fly around. He's just a really good talent. And TJ Watt, I mean, plus 400. I mean, to be honest, Myles Garrett, yes, he is the odds-on favorite, but not by much. I think these next few games could go a long way in this. So I see value actually on pretty much Parsons or Watt.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. I just don't see a rookie winning it. Now it would be awesome. I'm not gonna if it happens, heck, I'll be going crazy because when we talked to, I think on one of our first podcasts of the season, I said Micah Parsons has a chance for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think he's really good. So props to me. Pat on the back, Austin. You're
Yeah.
great at this. Yeah, I mean, Micah Parsons been insane. It's hard to see, but it is a hype award sometimes. It's a rookie of the year kind of award. He could certainly get it. TJ Watt does currently lead the league in sacks, and granted, he's played 2 fewer games than Myles Garrett, so maybe that plays into it. But I don't know. It's just the way that Myles Garrett puts film on the tape of his, just shoving a guy. I don't know. It's just something about Myles Garrett. I think he's due one. But you're right. I think it's going to be a 3-headed race between him, TJ Watt, and Micah Parsons, and we'll see who wins it. Trayvon Diggs, I know, had a chance, but that man gives up. He's Marcus Peters 2.0, and you can't change my mind.
That's a good comparison. No, I mean, truthfully though, when you're kind of talking about it, I mean, there's a little bit of Cleveland like yuckiness, right? If the Browns maybe tank a little bit, don't make the playoffs, could we forget about Myles Garrett? There's a chance. And if the Cowboys are rolling and the Cowboys are on a good trajectory, I'm just saying, I think it would be really cool to see him win Defensive Rookie of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, what a start of the career for him.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous. But with that talk aside, we're going to start moving into week 15. We have one final social question, which we'll answer at the end, which is what got us into sports betting. But first, we're going to go to week 15 and we're going to talk about our upset picks. Now, last week, Austin, another pat on the back. Come on, man. He's cashing these.
You're the best.
2 in a row. 2 in a row.
It's like you do this or something.
I gave you the Rams. I need to go back and check my record on the season, but I gave her the Rams. And love them or hate them. Some people hated the pick in the comments, especially Monday Night Football. The Rams won outright. I tried to tell you they were going to win this one, and of course they did. Per usual, this is what I do. Now, last week, Logan, you had a chance. You almost did. It was the Bills, and I respect a modest effort. You've been getting real close in some of these. That's not your fault. Yeah. But I'll let you kick this one off. Who's your upset pick this weekend? Because
it's not okay. It's not like I'm picking Jets, or it's not like I'm picking Jags.
Let's take a step back now. This week, so when we do our pre-show, we go through the full slate and we kind of try to find value, but also, not crazy value like picking the Jets or picking, even the Saints are, an interesting one this weekend, but it's this week's tough. And so I'll give people a benefit of the doubt. These are not the most confident upset picks in my opinion. The past couple of weeks, we've had, teams in the plus 130, plus 140 range. This week, you don't have that. It's either like plus 108 or it's plus 160 or it's like plus 400. And let me put this. You got the wrong guy if you think I'm picking the Houston Texans. I'm just going to say that. I'm not doing it. I don't care. I don't want to watch a minute of that Texans Jaguars game. No. But take it away.
No, and I was just about to get on the whole value thing. Look, I mean, we preach value, and at the end of the day, I'm just trying to get a win. So I'm just trying to get a plus value, cash money, Bengals versus the Broncos. The Bengals are sitting at plus 108. Yes, I do know it's in Denver. Denver, a tough place to play. But look, the Bengals have the offense to do it, right? If they jump out to a lead, just like you were saying earlier, I don't love the Broncos playing from behind. They're just not built like that. So let's just say a few explosive plays too. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, maybe a big Joe Mixon screen pass, right? Like Joe Mixon, I could just see it right now. A Joe Mixon like 60-yard screen pass to the house. I mean, it's what he does. And so I think the Bengals will have enough explosive plays offensively that they might be able to distance themselves against Denver. I mean, yes, is this game kind of a pick 'em? A little bit, but at the plus money value, I'm just going to ride with the Bengals. I know you got hurt by them, and you know what?
Yeah.
To be honest, they caused you some pain last week. But wouldn't it just be right for them to win the week after you pick them, right? Can't you see
That
it?
would be on brand, yes.
That's kind of how it works. And I'm rolling with Joe Burrow and the Bengals in that one.
Okay, I can respect the upset pick. I considered it; it was on my radar. Given my track record with the Bengals, I decided to go away from them
Smart.
for reasons that I do not need to disclose. But the pick I'm going to go with, and we'll talk about this game a little bit more in depth, or maybe we can talk about it now. It's Monday Night Football, and you already talked about it earlier. I'm taking the Chicago Bears plus 165, taking on the Vikings. So you can think about this game. You're like, oh, Austin, why are you picking the Bears? They're led by Justin Fields. This offense stinks. Matt Nagy stinks. Vikings, the Vikings are playing a little bit better. And I get what you're saying. And I do. I really do. But in my head, when I think about Kirk Cousins on Monday Night Football on prime time, you get the wrong guy if you think I'm going to back him. And on the road, add that into it. No, I'm not doing it. Kirk Cousins got in his 10 career starts on Monday Night Football, got his first ever win last year. He was 0-9 up until that point. Finally got a win. He's not going on a winning streak on Monday Night Football. I just won't allow it. Justin Fields, finally, and maybe the coaching staff will slap him silly and tell him, yo, you don't have to throw it 25 yards down the field. Just dump it off to David Montgomery. And we finally did that in the final drive. And once you know, they kind of moved the ball. But, man, Justin Fields has a bunch of growing pains to go through. And as a guy watching Zach Wilson, I don't know what he's doing. I can't say throw the football because sometimes it doesn't look like he's doing that all too much. But as a guy that's watched, rookie QB all season, I know Justin Fields has promise, and I'm going to ride with the Bears. I think they get the upset pick. When I think about this Vikings team, it's a team that loses games they should win. And this is a game 100% they should win. A lot of people doubted them last Thursday on prime time against the Steelers. They tried to choke that game away. They should have won that game, in my opinion, regardless. This is a game they 100% should win, and will see them lose it outright to the Chicago Bears.
I mean, it's bold. And now, obviously you get the bold award for your pick because you know what? Nothing about me wants to pick Bears. It's a pick that quite frankly, I mean, your confidence meter 1 to 10. Where are you?
Confidence to where not high enough to where we'll make the video on Monday.
Exactly. Okay, so at the end of the day, I can understand what you're talking about with the narrative and Kirk Cousins and everything. Promising sign was seeing the Bears finally put up some points against Green Bay. It's not like they got shut out, right? So if they got shut out, I would be telling you, Austin, you lost your mind. But you know what? I think, in Kirk Cousins, I don't trust at all. But you know what? Dalvin Cook, as long as he's somewhat healthy, and Justin Jefferson, are we getting Adam Thielen back? I don't know.
I'd imagine so. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, at the time we're recording, obviously that's going to be a steep hill for the Bears to climb. I'm sure you're going to have everyone and their mother betting Vikings, and you know what? Everyone and their mother might be wrong again, right? Vegas is probably going to be angry from what happened this weekend. What did you tell me before the show? Vegas had some pretty juicy L's.
Yeah, Vegas took a beating this week, and I'm trying to think how many games there were. There were 4 teams on a bye, so that's 28. There was 14 games, I think, heading into Monday Night Football. I think the favorites were like 10-3 against the spread. Obviously, the favorite did not cover on Monday night. They kind of came and snatched back a little coin from you guys. Unless you were listening, you took the Rams like we were trying to tell you. Yeah, I think they'll be angry this weekend, and we'll see. It's not – when I try to give these upset picks, like I prefaced the segment, it's not a great week this week. But I'm going to ride with the Bears. That you're right. Dalvin Cook's a beast, and the Steelers just had no interest in stopping him last week and letting him run for over 200 yards. That was ridiculous. I should have taken his player prop over. Granted, KJ Osborne cashed it for me, and so thank you to him for his services. But still, I think the Bears got something to prove in this one. They're kind of still, they're at home, which is big. If they were on the road, we really wouldn't be backing them here. But I think the spread is indicative that they think the Bears got a chance in this one. And that's all I'm asking for. We've seen the Bears, I think, on Monday Night Football once before, and it was against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they almost won that game outright. That was at Heinz Field. So they're used to playing on Monday night. I don't know. It's just the feeling I've got. I'm calling my shot, if you will.
all the respect to you. As I'm watching that game, I'll be thinking of you, and I'll be thinking about your optimism with the Bears. Fingers crossed.
And that's all I could expect from you. Now, the next game we're going to move into, it's going to be Thursday night football. And we got the Chargers versus the Broncos. And it's going to be an interesting one.
You said Chargers, Broncos. Chiefs, Chargers.
Oh, no. It's going to be sorry, I'm trying to update our banner so that you can see what it is. But here we go.
Yep. Chiefs at Chargers is what you meant to say.
Yeah, we got Chiefs at Chargers, and the Chiefs are 3-point favorites. And I want to let you take it away.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, look, you know what? I was a sucker this weekend. When I say sucker, I mean I thought the Las Vegas Raiders, given 9.5 points, yeah, I thought they might be able to cover that. And then I watched what they did on the Chiefs logo, and I was like, oh no, tell me they didn't just do what I saw them doing. Yep, they were dancing on the Chiefs logo. They were just being disrespectful to Patrick Mahomes. Yep, give me one of those. They were being disrespectful to Patrick Mahomes. And this is a Chiefs team that doesn't need added motivation, right? They started the year off slumping, right? Everyone was like, what's wrong with the Chiefs? Well, here they are. Just absolutely boat race the Raiders. Made me look like a fool for spending $1 on the Raiders. But you know what? This is what the Patrick Mahomes, and quite honestly, it's not even so much Patrick Mahomes in the offense. It's that defense. I mean, come on. Who saw this coming, right? Who saw them swarming to the ball? Their secondary, L'Jarius Sneed, players like that are just pretty much turning into lockdown corners in front of our eyes. I think if the Chiefs continue to play at this level, pencil them in for a potential AFC championship matchup. I don't necessarily think the Chargers, Justin Herbert, great offense, Eckler, okay, but I don't think they're going to be able to move the ball as much as they need to against Kansas City.
Yeah, this game is an interesting one on paper. In my opinion, the spread should be a little bit bigger in favor of the Chiefs, in my opinion, because I look at this Chargers team, and they are a team that is so up and down that you just don't know what you're getting from them on a week-to-week basis. Now, have they gone in and beaten this chart? They went into Arrowhead and they beat the Chiefs earlier this season, in a convincing manner. Mike Williams, I believe, with the end of game touchdown to kind of seal the deal in that one. But when I look at this team, they could be potentially without their star rookie, I believe, left tackle Rashawn Slater. So he's really good. He's kind of protects Justin Herbert. He's been one of the best offensive linemen in all of football, not just rookie wise. He's been awesome. They're getting Keenan Allen back. They got Mike Williams still going, and Justin Herbert still keeps making ridiculous throws left and right. But yeah, you're right. It's just, I think that Chiefs defense is really starting to, they've heard all the criticism. They go onto Twitter. They went onto Twitter a couple months back. They were saying all this, Chiefs defense terrible, blah, blah, blah. They saw all the hate and they've taken it personal, and these guys are all playing tough. And they're showing out and they're locking down teams. Their offense isn't even doing that well, honestly. I mean, they got Clyde Edwards-Helaire goal line back into the end zone, I think, twice last week. But still, the offense really hasn't been there. But truthfully, they really haven't had to be, because their just defense has been absolutely ridiculous. Pat Mahomes isn't putting up crazy, ridiculous numbers. If you have him in fantasy football, you're likely not in the playoffs, if I were to imagine, because his numbers, I mean, they still are good for a QB, but aren't as good as you would really think from a Patrick Mahomes kind of led season. And so, yeah, I'm going to ride with the Chiefs in this one. I'll have my video later on tonight, and maybe I'll change my mind depending on injuries, because that's another thing I want to talk about is injuries have been wild, not just in the NFL, as several, 30, 40 players went on the health and safety protocols list today. Same thing for NBA. There's people going out left and right before tip-off, right before kickoff. It's ridiculous. So, like we answered a question a couple weeks back about when to place your bets. I'd probably wait until the final moment, because you really don't know what's going to happen in any of these games. So in my opinion, in this one specifically, I'm going to ride with the Chiefs, although they will be without probably Chris Jones, their star defensive tackle. I think he's their tackle, or maybe one of their ends, but he should be out for this game. But I still think the Chiefs are good enough to win this game. The Chargers are basically going to be an away game, because I expect a lot of Chiefs fans to travel to their stadium. But props to the Chargers, though. You got to be proud of them. They're 8-5. They're finally kind of, getting some fan base in LA. The Rams are obviously good, so a lot of people are going to be Rams fans, but still the Chargers are holding their own and still playing pretty well. So personally, from a fan perspective, I'll be rooting for the Chargers because I love the story, love Austin Eckler, love Justin Herbert. I like to see parity in the league. I like seeing other teams, succeed, and the Chiefs have obviously been super successful the last couple of years. But on the, reality side kicks in, and I think Patrick Mahomes will get it done.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say it better myself about the injuries, about all these health and safety protocols. It's just, it really is on paper. You just have to dive into these matchups even more. But you can't just look at what the Chiefs have been doing, what the Chargers have been doing. Really, those key misses. I mean, you just told me a person that I didn't even know was going to miss this game, and I'm sure by the time maybe that kicks off, maybe there's a couple more. So obviously, stay tuned for that one.
Yeah, so let's move on to another big matchup, Saturday Night Football. We have Saturday games. Yes, you heard that right. There are
Heck
two
yeah.
Saturday games. So if you're in the playoffs, make sure you set your lineups because we got Saturday games. And the first, I don't remember the first one on the slate, but the one that I think is the biggest, Patriots versus Colts, a big matchup. Colts
Mhm.
-2.5. They're at home. I want you to give your takeaway on this one, and I'll give you mine.
Well, first of all, the first game was Raiders and Browns, by the way, just on Saturday. But Patriots at Colts. This one. Look, to me, Bill Belichick always wants to take away something, right? He wants to take away, Stephon Diggs. He wants to look. I mean, the last time we saw the Patriots, they were just absolutely grinding it out against the Bills. They can do whatever they want offensively. They don't even need mac and cheese to throw for 100 yards. Yeah, they need to throw him 20 yards. But at the end of the day, I think this is going to hinge a lot on Carson Wentz. Can Carson Wentz just go out there and not turn the ball over a million times? If so, if the answer to that question is yes, I like the Colts in this one. I just think they have a little bit more offensive firepower playing at home in that dome, right? Obviously, weather conditions aren't going to be a thing. I think Jonathan Taylor, he's good enough to still be effective. I'm going to ride Colts -2.5. I expect a lot of pushback on that one. I expect a lot of people still be on Patriots just because they're such a believer in Bill Belichick.
I'm on the wagon of that is the New England Patriots. This
Good.
this game this game is it's a tough one for me to personally give out a pick for, and I'll explain it. And now that I think about it, maybe I'll make a separate video for Saturday in the NFL. That's completely off topic. Maybe you'll be able to see that. Maybe that will be live Friday night. Um, this game, on one hand, I hate the Patriots, and I will root against them every single game that I can. And this will be another one. I will be rooting hard for the Colts. But on the other hand, they've been really good. Mac Jones is looking like my MVP. I say that maybe to jinx him. Who said that? The Patriots, you're right. The Bill Belichick always has a great defensive scheme, and we think about Carson Wentz. He's not in that echelon of Kirk Cousins tier, but he's kind of in that. Man, I don't. If game on the line, do I have a lot of faith? If my bet they're down one and we need a field goal, am I happy? Is my bet going to cash with Colts money line? I don't feel great about it with Carson Wentz having
Yeah.
to go down the field and get a field goal, especially against the great defense that is the Patriots. But you're right. I think it's easier for Bill Belichick to stop an opponent's number one kind of player if it's like a Kyle Pitts or like a Stephon Diggs or a wide receiver. Much harder to do if it's a running back. We've seen the Patriots struggle, especially to stop guys like Derrick Henry in the past. We've seen that Titans team succeed against the Patriots in recent years. And that's because their main guy was a running back. And Jonathan Taylor's been arguably he's even in the top echelon for kind of MVP guys. That's how great he's been. I think the offensive player of the year odds on favorite right now. I think he's plus 125. Cooper Kupp right behind him at like plus 150. But it's hard to stop Jonathan Taylor. You're gonna have to sell out to stop that run. And I think Carson Wentz is good enough in the play action pass. But you're right. Can he stay from not turning the ball over? I don't know. I do think the Colts have a good chance to win this one. I'll be rooting for him hard, but it's hard to bet against Bill Belichick in prime time on a
Yeah.
Saturday night. But they both are on a bye week. So they both were on a bye week last week. So same amount of time. Well, technically the Colts had one more day because the Patriots played on Monday.
Yeah, well, again, stylistically, you kind of touched on it, right? This game will be obviously decided in the battle of the trenches. And you know what we saw, when the Bills and Patriots matched up, the Bills wanted no piece of that trench battle. Nope, they just wanted to try to air it out. They just wanted to be cute. Look, as long as the Colts don't try to get cute and think Carson Wentz needs to throw the ball 30 plus times, they'll be okay because at the end of the day, they match up pretty well against New England in the trenches. They have an offensive line that still can be able to get some push, get Jonathan Taylor some yards, and set up those, third and manageable, right? Again, Carson Wentz does not thrive in third and long, because then you're asking him to do too much, right? We can't have Carson Wentz doing too much. But that being said, I'll ride Colts -2.5.
100%. It will come down to, in my opinion, it's going to come to Carson Wentz, and will come down to the Colts defense. I know the Colts running game and their offensive line will show up, but it's those two wild cards that you really don't know what to expect. And so I think that will determine the game, in all honesty. Now, we got 2 more games, and we'll answer our final question. Sunday Night Football. We got the Saints traveling to Tampa to take on the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers -10.5. I was crazy to see this line at this big, but I want you to give your takeaway. I'll start this one because you've been starting the past couple. When I think about these two teams matching up in the past 2 years with Tom Brady as a Buccaneer taking on the Saints, they've been his kryptonite. He has really struggled against this Saints defense. That's why I was surprised to see 10.5 points. I really expected a 6.5, 7-point line, but they're giving them 10.5. I think that shows a lot of respect for the Buccaneers. And so I'm going to ride with the Buccaneers in this one, not because I expect the Saints to be a popular play. I expect to see people say, Tom Brady's record in prime time, I don't know if he covered his last time in prime time, but I think he had not covered in like 11 straight or whatever the number was. But in some things that I have to say, in Taysom Hill, you can't trust, especially against a defense like the Buccaneers, one of the best stopping the run. They're going to make him throw the ball, and you can best believe Todd Bowles is going to say, all right, beat us, throw it through the air. And I don't have a lot of faith in Taysom Hill to get it done, him and his mallet finger and all. I just don't see it getting done at all. Alvin Kamara is back, so that's a great news for the Saints, because if he wasn't here, I think the spread would be 13.5. And he looked really good, but it was against the New York Jets last week, and I could have ran for 120 yards against the Jets. Ooh. Probably not. Probably ran for like 35. Probably like Rex Burkhead stats. Okay, Rex Burkhead didn't deserve it. He didn't deserve that. I'm sorry.
He got astray. What the
heck? But regardless, I'm going to ride with the Buccaneers. I love them at home. They've been really good. They've been unreal at home this season. They really laid off the gas pedal last game. Really could have lost against that Buffalo Bills team. Probably should have lost, but the defense made enough plays when they needed to, and I'm going to ride with them today against the Saints team that, truthfully, I think Tom Brady's out for some revenge. So is Mike Evans. At least I'm hoping for, because I need a big game from him in the fantasy playoffs. So what are your takeaway on this one?
Yeah, the spread is high for a reason, right? Now you could get suckered into taking bad teams with points, like I got suckered into taking the Vegas Raiders, and some people got suckered into taking the Jaguars with points, right? So just because you see, just because you see a high, some points doesn't mean you just say, oh, yeah, that's too many. Especially in the divisional game, you're looking at it and you're like, oh, well, Saints match up pretty well, historically versus the Bucs. But I'm in agreement with you on this one, just because I think the Bucs are going to say, yeah, absolutely, we're going to just stack the box. Taysom Hill, go show us that you can throw the ball. Maybe we get some, I don't know, Trevor Siemian, is he healthy? Maybe we get some Trevor Siemian just to spice it up a little bit in our lives. But at the end of the day, I think the Bucs offense is just too powerful, right? Chris Godwin doesn't get talked enough, about enough. I don't think. He's just, he's on that Cooper Kupp level. I would, I don't think it would be crazy to say Chris Godwin is won a lot of people some fantasy, leagues. Maybe they're in the playoffs as well. But yeah, give me the Bucs. I know I'm laying 10.5, and that's a big number. But they're at home. See, if this was in New Orleans, yeah, I'd have some second thoughts about it. But give me Bucs at home.
Yeah, not on the road. Side note, Chris Godwin is second in the NFL in terms of receptions. I think he's 93.
Makes sense.
Cooper Kupp, 113, on pace to almost break Michael Thomas's record. I believe Michael Thomas had 149. I think Kupp's on pace for 148. Honestly, I think he gets it done because they have no one else to throw it to. Cooper Kupp's getting targeted 15 times a game.
I would love to see Cooper Kupp break that record. I can't stand Michael Thomas.
Get up. Okay, before we get off track, we're going to get back to Monday Night Football. We already kind of talked about this game a little bit. I want you to give your takeaway. Obviously, I'm riding with the Bears money line, but would you lay the 4 with Kirky, Captain Kirk?
Yes, I will, and I'll just tell you why. Because I can't go to bed at night watch it. I can't go to bed betting Bears and then them lose by 10 plus. And I just said, I know. Like I understand. Look, I understand why the spread is what it is, right? You got to look at it. Vikings only win, or they're in close games. They won't win by blowouts. So obviously -4. That's in a comfortable enough territory that I could see, them winning by 4 at the bare minimum of a push. as long as we get a healthy Dalvin Cook, and I will go ahead and ride Minnesota.
Okay, I can respect that. You guys already heard my take. Now, the final question, which came from one of you guys, it came from our boy Tyler, and he asked us, what got us into sports betting? So, Logan, I'll let you take this away because I'm curious what your answer is.
Yeah. All right. So truthfully, I mean, let's get into personal. So I mean, I obviously grew up and lived in Florida. I went to the University of Florida my whole life. So I grew up in a state where gambling is not legal, and I moved to Philly, with my girlfriend, and Pennsylvania is a huge sports betting state. It's in your face. You're driving the interstate. DraftKings, FanDuel, all these billboards. You get off the train. You're coming up the steps. FanDuel. You just get, and it's constantly in your face. So I'm like, you know what? Let's try it out. And you know what? I was absolutely hooked. I had the true gambling fiend, degenerate mentality. So yes, I went too hard when I first started gambling. Since then I've gotten control of it, because it is for a lot of people, unfortunately, they do struggle. 1-800-GAMBLER is a number to call if you're potentially down a bad path. But that being said, gambling is fun with your friends. And Austin, I do credit you a lot for getting me into sports betting, because I mean, you use those weird offshore sites when you first started gambling, and you inspired me. I'm like, look, Austin takes all those L's. I could be better than him. So it was a little bit of a competitive advantage too, because I saw you and I was like, why can't I win some money? Austin's over here losing the shirt off his back most nights. Can I be better than that?
Yeah, you're right. And as we record this, I believe Stephen Curry just made history. I think I just got a tweet
I
on my
saw
phone that he
that.
just did it.
I
So props
just
to
saw
him.
that,
Shout
yeah.
out to Stephen Curry for breaking the record. He definitely did it in the first quarter because the game just started a second ago.
That
I'm
means an
curious.
odds boost tip. Pause. An
Means
odds
an
boost
odds
tip.
boost definitely hit. You are correct. I'll pull it up. He's definitely hit it within the first 5 minutes of the game. That would be correct. Yes, he has hit it in the first 5 minutes. Just hit it. 7:33 left in the first quarter.
Kudos
What
to
got me
him.
into sports betting though? It was kind of, I had a friend. I won't say his name. He plays baseball though, and he did he did some sports betting. And if you're a frequent flyer to the podcast, then you know who he is. But yeah, he played, and I was like, he told me about my bookie, and I was like, sure, I'll try it out. And yeah, did I lose some money? Yeah, I'm not a degenerate out here dropping hundreds of dollars on things, especially when I'm just new to sports betting. But I definitely enjoyed it. Now, if I went back and never was introduced to sports betting, would I be mad? Probably, because we wouldn't have the calling a shot channel. That wouldn't be a thing. But sports betting has definitely made my viewing pleasure and watching of the games a lot different than it
Yeah.
used to be. Um, Now, on the good hand, it gives you a rooting interest in bad games, like a Jaguars versus a Texans game or something like that. Well, if you bet on that, which I do not advise you to bet on it because you don't want to watch that. But on the other hand, it makes games agonizing to watch, and you can just be hurt so good. There are so many bad beats. We could probably do a whole podcast. Maybe we will in the future about some bad beats that we've suffered during the off season. But it's tough. It's tough. And I've really
Yeah.
enjoyed sports betting. It's really brought the whole call in our shot community together. And you're right. Some people do struggle. And I'm glad you brought that up because some people do struggle with sports betting. And in my opinion, it's something supposed to be that fun. If you're relying on it for paycheck to paycheck, then, good luck. I wish you the best of luck. It's hard to really, win that much money in sports betting, especially because sports books do not want you to win. They specifically basically try to limit you from winning, and if you're
Yeah.
winning too much, they start to limit you on those sports books. But it is something that is a lot of fun to do, especially with your friends and family. And so if you have friends that do it, I'm sure you guys do it together. You share your bet slips, share your long shot parlays for to turn $20 into 100,000, and then you're not cashing out. I don't advise that. But there's a lot of different sports betting tips and things that you could do to kind of make money and build your bankroll. And we've done several tips and tricks videos. You can check out those on the channel. But I really like sports betting. It's one of the coolest things in the world, and I'm excited for a lot of people to kind of gain access to it and see more and more. Not only will it help the Call on Our Shot channel grow as more states become legalized, but also it's another kind of avenue for people to enjoy sports and find an interest in something that they might not have had a lot of interest in before.
Yeah, of course. You bring up some really good points in there. And you know what? When you buy a lotto ticket, the way I look at it, when you buy a lottery ticket, you're kind of gambling in a different form, right? Either you get the winning numbers or you don't. When you sports bet, it's like, you buy that, you pay for the ticket, but at least you get a little bit of show, right? You might cash your bet, you might not. Just like you might win the lottery, you might not. So it is a different form of gambling. And I must say, my girlfriend, she wishes I never would have got into sports betting. She absolutely, if she had a time machine, she would block all those FanDuel DraftKings ads from me, because she's like, "Can't you just watch a game and not bet on it?" No, I can't. I
No,
it's it's not
this
happening. So quit
cannot
asking.
cannot compute.
It's just that it has changed the way I view sports, for the better or for the worse. I just, it, be it how it may. But yes, calling our shot as a channel, we owe a lot of our success to sports betting, and hopefully, maybe in the not so distant future, it's legal in all 50 states. We'd love to see that.
That would be certainly a treat, and that would be something I would 100% vote on, because I think it's a good way to not only build tax revenue for things that might not have it, but there's a whole nother avenue we could go down for that route. I
Yeah,
think my
of
girlfriend would
course.
agree. She's proud of me and proud of us for the Call and Shot channel and where it's come. But if she could take away sports betting, she probably would, because she gets to hear this joke every weekend. And I normally tell her, I say, "Hey, I made $100 today," and she said, "Really? What'd you do?" And I said, "Well, not yet. My parlay's hitting though. You best believe it's hitting." So she loves
Yeah,
that joke. I'm sure if she could, she would pay me to never say it again. But
boom,
it's definitely something that really has brought together this whole community.
of
And it's
course.
it's something cool to see, because all these people, whether they take my bets or whether they just watch the video to hear my voice or
Yeah.
whatever their viewing pleasure may be, um, it's cool to see the whole community grow together and kind of try to beat the books together. And if we don't, we lose together, and it's a whole kind of community family kind of vibe over here.
No, lastly, I hear exactly what you're saying. I never understood in post All-Star break, when people listen to my baseball videos and I was just selling the worst information on planet Earth. I was a fade god. If you were fading me, you probably were able to retire from your day job, because I was abysmal. But everybody was so supportive, and they loved my videos, and I'm like, this is the community. This is what brings us together. I mean, through the good, through the bad, obviously. I mean, you've had your fair share of slumps as well. I mean, that's what makes this community great, though, because we have so much fun making the videos.
100%. It doesn't get better than that. The community aspect of it is amazing. You'll have some bad apples in there, and that's fine. It's gonna always happen. We can't have
Of course.
almost 16,000, loyal stand supporters. We're gonna have some people in that, want to see us lose or whatever, and that's fine. But in the end of it, I really appreciate everyone that's a part of the community, everyone that
Of
kind of
course.
roots for our bets and kind of even tells some of them that they do. I mean, I always try to preach, do your own research, and I know there's several people, and it's not just in the videos, not even several. There's hundreds of thousands of people that look at my bets, but they don't even tell a single one of them. They just listen to hear my thoughts, and if it agrees with their thoughts, then they go with it. If it's completely, if they're like, no, I wanted the over, and you picked the under, then go with whichever you think about it. So I think that's the coolest thing about sports betting is, yeah, you're right. You can win some money, but you also get a show. If you're betting thousands of dollars, I don't know about that. It's probably more stressful than a show, but hey, it's a show nonetheless.
Yeah. Yeah, no, of course. It's when you're not betting a stressful amount of money, it can be fun, right? You just have to walk the fine line of balance, right? As in life, everything is good in moderation. That's my closing thoughts on sports betting as a philosophy.
100%. Couldn't have said it better myself. I appreciate you guys for listening all the way to the end of the podcast. We appreciate you. We'll be back again Wednesday, next Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. You guys can always send your questions to me on Tuesday, right before the show. We record at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Always send us your questions. And I appreciate you guys. As a reminder, live stream is tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern time. This is Wednesday. If you're listening to it after Wednesday, I don't know what you can do with it. But we appreciate you guys for tuning in. Subscribe if you're new. This has been Logan. Oh, this has been Austin and Logan, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, everyone. And make sure we make some money this weekend. I have faith in you guys. See you guys
Of
later.
course.